So, Anthony Horowitz, yes or no? Yes, 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 yes. There you go, you have my answers. But don't leave just yet. Let me tell you why. Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing a review of one of the best-selling authors of murder mysteries in the world, Anthony Horowitz. I only have 6 of his books with me today, but let's just dive into it. The reason I ask yes or no this question was because I had my doubts before I start reading his book. Obviously, he's really popular, but is he good enough? Is the plot complicated enough? Should I spend the money and the time to read A Whodunit? And will it bring me the thrill that I was chasing? That was my initial doubt about it. I first heard about his work through the TV series of, here we are, Magpie Murders. I love the TV show, that's why I bought the paper copy book, then followed by the Hawthorne series. Let's start by the plot, since it's the most important thing in a murder mystery. I think Horowitz specializes in 2 types of storytellings. One, you can see from the Hawthorne series, he has a way to twist the timeline by connecting 2 or 3 cases all together. What happened in the past was undoubtedly affecting the present time in the book. All 4 books in the Hawthorne series are playing with linear time. He would tell you about a modern case, a case that happened in the present time, but the real reason, the real case, was buried, hiding in the past of the characters, in their histories, the evil past of theirs, which made the Hawthorne series very interesting to read because you can see how he jumps between both cases, between both timelines and spots, and how he brought us back to the past, the histories, and revealing the characters' evil secrets, their past, by having conversation, something from a diary or from a book, which I thought was pretty interesting to read. And the series starts, if you haven't read it, the series starts from Horowitz himself, so he put himself in the stories. He was, as the real person, he was a writer who specializes in murder mysteries, and he was approached by a fictional former police officer turned detective, Hawthorne. Hawthorne asked him to turn the cases into books because he had some really interesting cases, and they could both benefit financially from the books. That's why the fictional Horowitz wrote these books. The stories unfold as they keep digging the cases in a Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson kind of way, kind of mode. Hawthorne was a very difficult yet talented detective, a little bit like Sherlock Holmes or Sherlock from the BBC TV series. If you have watched it, of course you do, everybody does. Horowitz was the poor help and always got hurt in the way of solving the cases, but Hawthorne was always there to save him in the last minute, and everyone goes home happily. It's the end of the day. When you understood the law of this series, how he played twisted with the linear time and connecting 2 cases together, you will automatically start guessing every time you get a new book from this series. Who was the character with a dark, twisted history past this time? And in terms of storytelling, he was a master of pacing. The clues are there, but they were buried under subtle hints, clever dialogues, and the characters who are always much more than they seem. I watched the TV series first, then I read the book, so by the time I opened the pages, I already knew who done it in this whodunit. And every hint and clues matched when I go back from the beginning, which I thought it was perfectly executed from the author's point. But in the series of Susan Ryland, so Magpie Murder and Moonflower Murders, he creatively designed the story in a case within a case format, with several cases in the novel becoming a non-linear narrative mixed between the virtual and the real. So Susan Ryland was a fictional editor, a book editor, who represented Ellen Conway, a fictional murder story best-selling author, who was also a jerk. In the first two Susan Ryland books, Susan had to solve not only the cases happened in her real world, but also the cases buried in Ellen Conway's detective stories. In terms of volume and the complexity, I would say both Magpie Murders and Moonflower Murders are significantly bigger and harder than the Hawthorne series. I can vaguely guess the murders in Hawthorne series, but I had no clue in Magpie Murders. Moonflower Murders was a little bit different because I thought I picked up some of his hints at the beginning, and the plot is not the only thing I admire about Horowitz books. I found him genuine, authenticated, witty, and modern. Let me explain. He writes in incredibly real details in all of his books. The locations, the activities, the train station, the characters' hobbies and lives. And given the fact that he put himself in the Hawthorne series, it made the books as real as a documentary or a diary or news feature, as the real thing. In The Twisted of a Knife, you can practically view it as a who's who in London's theatre and journalism world. In The Sentence is Death, a lot of vivid details about making a television, hanging out with the celebrities and the TV and film industry. In A Line to Kill and Magpie Murders, a glimpse of literary and publishing world, you can tell it's not just his imagination. Of course, the murders, the cases are his imagination, but he also puts a huge amount of details from his real world into the books. Writer's block, the nasty bad book reviews, the annoying celebrities, and the publishing world, the business, the people and family around him, his wife, his kids. He built a literary world that is so solid that I, for one, bought it. I believe it was true that's what happened when I was reading The World is Murder. At some point, I even thought Hawthorne was real. I wanted to Google him and get a glimpse of what he might look like. That's how real it was to me as a reader. Brings me to the next point. Horowitz writes in a witty and modern way. He put a lot of British humor in it. He blends Shakespeare and Mozart into the stories, and in one book, Mozart was a hint of the story. And he plays with anagrams, and anagrams was a really big deal in Magpie Murder. He and the Moonflower Murders, probably because it starts from a point of a publishing author, so of course Ellen Conway was going to play with the words. He made the fictional Horowitz and Hawthorne banter and made fun of each other, and they kind of love-hate each other, but it was really fun. And they eventually became good friends, and Hawthorne saved Horowitz's life a few times. Also, in both series, I didn't realize it until I finished reading all 6 books. In both series, he put LGBTQ characters in the story, but in a very natural way. You can feel that he didn't write it because it's a popular thing to put in, or he tried to be correct in some way. He wrote it because he thought they should be there. Also, all the characters in his stories are so charming. They're all flawed, but they were fascinating and was really fun to just hang out with. Ellen Conway was a talented dick. Hawthorne was a difficult, quiet, and impatient guy. You would admire him, but you might not want to be his friend. But you kind of want to be his friend, because if you are his friend, you will get his unquestionable questioned loyalty till the very end. And the fictional Horowitz was a little dumb, I'm sorry to say, but he was a great guy, he was a nice guy, but he was not that smart until he became really, really smart. It was really fun as well. He's very real. He has his snobbish doubt and he had his desires, and it just makes him very, very grounded. And Susan Ryland can't quit smoking. That was something we were told from the first page. She didn't have a husband or kids, and she didn't know what to do with her life. And even her own sister sometimes ask her, is this really what you want in your life? Being alone and being a book editor for the rest of your life? And she questioned her own life choices, like any woman living in modern day would do. Maybe Atticus Punt, the fictional detective that Alan Conway built, was the only good character in this story, but he was long gone, and we all know he was fictional. He was fictional plus fictional. I think Horowitz's characters were all friendly to readers. He built and opened a world that we can all find some of ourselves into these characters, and I feel for them, for the characters. I care for them, and I hope they all have a good ending at the end. Don't get died or don't kill someone. And that was my genuine feelings after reading his books. And the reason I love Susan Ryland was precisely because of this. In Magpie Murders, she was facing a professional dilemma of moving to Crete, Greek, with her boyfriend, or stepping up in her own career. She can't make a decision, and in Moonflower Murders, she was stuck in her new life. She was longing for changes again, and she questioned all choices that she made. I feel very connected with her in terms of being a woman and contemplating about life choices, and it actually surprised me because I didn't expect getting that feeling from a murder mystery. It was a lovely bonus point because I felt like he understands modern women. So in my own personal ranking in these 6 books, my personal favorite is Moonflower Murders. It's complicated enough that it comes in 2 books. One is what happened in the real world, and one is the book that Alan Conway wrote that happened in a case. It's creative, it's exciting to read. I finished it in 2 full days to get into this puzzle. I love it. Magpie Murders is pretty good too. A lot of clashing between the characters and jumps between different narrators, Susan's and Alan Conway's stories. But there are a lot of characters in this book, and you might need a little bit time to sink in. And I suggest maybe watch the first episode of the TV series, but don't watch it all and then started to read this book, because everyone would have a face and it might be easier to get into this story. And I guarantee you it's a great story. In terms of the Hawthorne series, I like the twist of a knife the best, because in terms of plotting and the clues buried inside the conversations, it was hidden in a very smart way. And if you are reading this story, pay attention to all the conversations. And then the word is murder, because I love the setting. I think everything, the whole arrangement of this book, in terms of plotting and clues and murder stories telling, everything was done in a very creative way. I love how he organized everything, even though I guessed the murderer in the first chapter. But it was still a fun ride, because the more I keep going, the more I'm trying to tell myself that, am I right? Or did he play me? Or did I manage not to get played? That was the fun of this story. And then the sentence is death is a very literal, well-put puzzle. But it was also fun to read because he put a lot of publishing beef and entertainment beef and gossip in this story. If you are following the British entertainment industry, you might enjoy this book. Also, it was not that big, so you can finish it in a day or two, and I think it was a great entertaining read. And then A Line to Kill, I didn't really particularly love this book because I thought it was a little bit far-fetched. I wasn't really buying the plot. I think everything was a little bit, is it really necessary? And the whole setup was too Agatha Christie for me. Murders in a isolated island and everyone was a suspect. But at this point, because this is the last book I read in this series, and by that point I was very invested in the characters and I simply wishing to hang out with them. That's why I read it, and I thought it was okay, but I didn't like this book as much as I did others. In terms of my conclusions, I would definitely buy more of his books when they comes out, which I know there are new books coming out from both series. When I was watching the TV series of Moonflower Murders last night, the TV series came out, I think last year. There was a few lines that Susan Ryland said in the script, which I couldn't agree more, and it answered my question about the ultimate reason why people read and love A Whodunit. Because in a world that nothing lasts forever and everything changes so quickly, A Whodunit guarantees truth, a grand revealing, a solid detective, and a final destination, a ending, a whole complete process that won't disappoint you. You know what you will get from a book like this. I think the stable feeling of reading A Whodunit and the thrill of guessing the murderer, finding out if you were right, it was the feeling that no matter what time we are in, we would always fall for. And with a little bit witty and humor and a great characters, a relatable characters, of course, people are gonna fall in love with Anthony Horowitz, because I, for one, did as well. So that's all for today's video. I hope you enjoy it and thinking about reading some of this, because they are really indeed great stories. And for the record, I like Atticus Punt, the fictional detective that Alan Conway wrote, because he was gentle and he was a nice person, he was polite. Still, I like Poirot a little bit more because I thought he was edgy and had his own character in his own funny way. But that's just for me. Okay. Thank you for watching. I hope you liked this video and see you next time. Bye.